Welcome to the Hiring and Empowering Solutions podcast. This podcast is dedicated to providing the key ingredients to transform your employees into a dream team, creating consistent results in every aspect of your business, including your people, your process, and your profits. Your team empowerment, leadership, business development, communication, hiring, and firing. As some of the country's leading staffing and management consultants, we help business owners, i.e. entrepreneurs, and the team that support them, what we call intrapreneurs, to powerfully connect and work together to grow the business. Welcome to the Hiring and Empowering Solutions podcast. My name is Molly McGrath, and I am so excited about today's episode, titled How to Know If You're Ready for Massive Growth in Business and in Life. And my guest, I'm so really excited for you all to meet Emily Williams of iHeartMyLife.com. And Emily is a success coach, an entrepreneur, and author of I Heart My Life book that just came out with a 7-figure business who at one point couldn't even get a job at Starbucks. So Emily, welcome to today's podcast.
Thank you, Molly. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, I just love your backstory, and I'd love if you could take a few minutes really to share that with our listeners today, because so many of them can resonate with it, whether they were in the startup phase of hanging their own shingle, as you and I spoke. Many of our listeners are from a law firm, a small solo law firm, or they're attorneys, or they may be employees, and can really resonate with where you were at the beginning of your journey. I know we talked about that. You know what it is to live with fear, insecurity, not to mention be up to your ears in debt, which I know many of our listeners have been at some point, or possibly could be at this point. And after a series of low-paying jobs that you really left you feeling bored, stuck, you decided you had to follow your heart. So you started to dream big. And I know we talked earlier about you moving to London where you really knew no one. Then you thought and dreamed about writing a book, which you weren't really sure anyone would ever read. And then launching your own 7-figure coaching business without knowing if you really could earn a dime. I'm sure many entrepreneurs are shaking their head right now saying, yes, I've been there, or I am there. And I just would love to hear you talk about your backstory and how you felt the fear and the uncertainty, and did it anyways, and what in the world allowed for you to summon that courage and take action?
Yeah, great question. So I think all of us who are in this place now, we have this amazing backstory. Some people don't recognize how incredible their story actually is. And so first and foremost, I appreciate you acknowledging my story, because that's really what makes us who we are and what gets us to, where we are today. And it's really important to take a look at it. So my story, as it pertains to your question in this podcast episode, really starts with me feeling confused. So there was a point in time where I thought I had it all figured out. I had applied to 12 different graduate schools around the US to get a master's in counseling psychology after going through an undergraduate degree program in psychology, and then decided on Northwestern in Chicago. And so I was literally one day, the summer of 2008, driving to Chicago with my mom from Ohio, where I'm from. She was driving, I was in the passenger seat. And along the drive, about 2 hours in, I got this feeling in the pit of my stomach, and I started to cry. And in that moment, she looked over and she asked me what was wrong. And I had no answer for her. I had no logical reason for why I was feeling the way I was feeling, because I thought that this was the path that I wanted. I got into this incredible school, thought I had it all planned out. But I told her in that moment, I just said, I feel like this is not the right decision. Something feels off. And I had that feeling in the pit of my stomach, which I'm sure other people can resonate with, where it did just feel off. And it felt like, more than anxiety, it just felt like this is not the right decision. And so in that moment, luckily my mom was very understanding, and she turned the car around and we went back to Ohio. And from there, I just entered into this major quarter life crisis because for everyone listening who's probably very driven, they've had a path that they've dreamed of. Maybe they're on it, maybe they're not, but you know how it feels to think you have something in place and then realize you're actually completely lost. And so for me, it was very difficult because I had to move back in with my parents. I had to try and figure out what the new plan was. I ended up applying for random jobs. Like you said in the introduction, I applied to Starbucks 3 times before they actually gave me a position. And it was just a really horrible period of time where, again, I just felt really lost. And I remember one day in particular, my dad actually drove through the Starbucks drive-through, and I was working the opening shift. So it was like 5:30 in the morning. And my dad doesn't drink coffee. He never has and doesn't to this day, but he wanted to see me. So he drove through that drive-through. And when I saw him pull up, my heart just sank because I was embarrassed and I didn't want him to see me working there. Again, not like there's anything wrong with working at Starbucks, but it wasn't what I had always envisioned. And I grew up with parents who taught me to follow my dreams. They taught me that I would make more money if I was interested in what I was doing. And so they had big dreams for me as well. And my dad had paid for all of my schooling. And so that was a really big moment for me where I was like, what am I going to do? And at that point, I started to try and listen to my heart because I realized that my heart had essentially got me into that mess in the first place with encouraging me to turn the car around. And so I started to listen to what was actually calling me. And whether it's your heart or your intuition or just a feeling, however you want to describe it, that's what I was going off of. And so I pulled from my memory box, and I remembered when I had visited London a few years prior, there was this feeling I got from that city. The moment I stepped out of Victoria Station, it felt like I was home, like I was meant to live there. And so I started to entertain the idea. What would it look like for me to move to London? No one in my family had ever moved abroad. That was strange to even consider it. I had been to London once. How could I even get there? But as I teach my clients, I believe in following those breadcrumbs. And oftentimes the breadcrumbs are our emotions. It's what lights us up. It's what excites us. So that's exactly what I did. I thought, okay, well, I'm just going to explore this. I'm going to follow the breadcrumbs. How could I get there? I found out that I would need a student visa or I would need a spouse visa. But at the time, I wasn't dating anyone in England. So I got the spouse visa. I applied for a master's in nonfiction writing because I, again, went into my heart and thought, okay, well, what do I want to do? I discovered I couldn't get a psychology degree because I didn't meet the prerequisites of the UK. So I thought, okay, I want to write a book. So let's look into a master's in nonfiction writing. So I applied for that. I ended up getting accepted. I got my student visa. And on August 24th, 2010, I packed my bags and moved to London with nothing other than 4 suitcases and a dream, as I like to say. And that was really the start of my life in London. Do you want me to keep going? I know that's a lot.
No, that was perfect. I love follow the breadcrumbs. As I'm sitting here thinking, listening to you speak, most people, when you speak about that gut feeling, if you will, that I always call it, some people anchor it to intuition, what have you, but most people ignore it and just chalk it up to nerves. And for you to have that wherewithal to, number 1, name it. Number 2, express it. Number 3, get validation from your parents, from your mom to turn that car around. Most people don't have that. And what I love about you, your business and everything that you speak about is that you can teach people how to find that, to be able to anchor to it and use it for every decision and follow those breadcrumbs, if you will.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. And I do, in the moment, I didn't think that it was a big deal, but after working with thousands of women around the world, it's obvious to me how much we doubt ourselves. And it's crazy because There are plenty of things that we don't want, and we have no problem acknowledging that. But when it comes to things that we do want, or even these, intuitive hits or feelings, we deny them if they seem outside of the norm. And that doesn't make sense to me. I believe our desires are dropped in. They're literally a part of us and a part of our DNA. And so it's our job to follow that. And oftentimes feelings are the indication of the direction that we should go in. And I'm not saying all the time. There is the time and place for emotion. And, I've learned that over the years, but it all of this path, this journey, moving forward towards that thing that you're meant for, that's something big. In my opinion, it all starts with desire and heart.
I love that, desire and heart. And then a piece, once you align those, then the courage to take action like you have. I get phone calls every single day, truly, from attorneys, whether they're initial calls or they're attorneys that I've been coaching for quite some time. And I hear often, I don't know if I want to be a lawyer anymore. I don't know if I want to keep scaling and growing this thing. I've met my dreams, but I'm exhausted. I'm burned out, and I've lost the passion for the law. I want to teach. I want to, whatever it might be. Or some people are like, I don't know what I want to do. And what I love is that, we both believe that success is definitely an inside job, and it's not about another strategy. And I get phone calls all the time, and people just saying, I just need another strategy. I just need a blueprint. I just need the magic bullet. I need to know how to do this thing. And some of them have experienced extraordinary success, it's made the money that they wanted to above and beyond sometimes. And then they reach that, and then it shocks them. But then they get to a tipping point, they get stuck, what have you. So can you talk to us a little bit about, and I know you and your husband in your business coach people all over the world in this, on how to really know how to design and live according to your own desires, such as you have, and give yourself permission to go after what you really want, and to decide and discern and know how to know if you're ready for massive growth or to shut this thing down and turn it around in life and business.
Yeah, there's so much to that question. So I think for me, one of the things that I've learned is that if we're constantly, well, let me back up. So one of the most important things about desires is to recognize that it's not actually about acquiring the thing. It's about who you become in the process and along the journey. And if we're constantly chasing just the thing or just the money or just the house, by the time we get it, if we're not observing the transformation and we're not actively becoming someone different, then it's going to feel really empty. And so for me, it's about really understanding, like, what is it that's calling you, and what does this mean to you, and why is it that you want it? And when we start to acknowledge our desires, even if it's something small, like, you know what, I want to go to a different restaurant today. I want to say no to this person. I want to say yes to this person. If we acknowledge those little desires, it becomes more habitual, and it becomes less scary to acknowledge them and move forward with them, even if they seem outlandish. And so I think as people practice this more and more, and they recognize that it's not just about the desire, but it's also about who you become in the process and the transformation, then the transformation and the journey becomes even more exciting. And then once you reach that goal, really reevaluate and play the whole tape through. I always say that to my clients, like, let's really envision what you're saying you actually want. Because a lot of times people think that they want something, or they're adopting or taking on someone else's version of success. And they don't take the time to actually look within and say, is this my true desire? Like, what is going to happen if I reach this level of success? What is going to happen if I take on this client? What is going to happen if I say yes to yet another opportunity? Is that actually what I want? And so really giving yourself the time and space to evaluate that. And then when it comes to turning something off or closing down a company, there's this incredible phrase that I heard on another podcast called "Don't Quit in the Darkness," and the podcast host was talking about how there's a group of Navy SEALs off the coast of San Diego that train every single year, and they'll spend hours even in the water overnight treading water. And there's a phrase that they use that is "Don't quit in the darkness," because of course in that moment of time where it's dark, your legs hurt, you feel like you can't go on, your mind says to quit. And a lot of entrepreneurs, they experience those moments and they think like, oh, I've done something wrong, or I'm not meant to be doing this. And then they quit in the darkness, or they quit right before they're about to see something come to fruition. And so I think it's really important. This is one of those periods of time to reconnect with your desire, what your ultimate vision is, what you want for your life. And yeah, maybe the answer is to turn something off or to make a change. But most of the time, we need to continue to move forward until we're seeing clearly, and then make a decision from that place.
I love that. Don't quit in the darkness. That's phenomenal. And what I love about that is you've just given us a strategy, if you will, in regards to knowing if you're ready. Because if you have that power of the pause, if you will, and just anchor to your desires and ask yourself those questions that you just beautifully laid out for us, you'll know why you're picking to take on that additional client. You'll know if you're ready to deploy that strategy, that marketing strategy that is going to get your phone to ring, that is going to 10x your business, whatever it might be. But you're picking from a place of joy, your passion, your desire versus have to.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think so often, people don't explore all of their options, or they don't reach out and get support or ask the question. They just suffer in silence. And I know that you're getting phone call after phone call, and I totally get that, but I'd love for people to, think about everything that they've created. And I think so often we feel like it's just going to be easier to just turn it off, but why not tweak it? Why not look for a different solution? And I think that when we get to the place of struggle, that's one of the biggest lessons that I've really had is learning to love challenge, and to be even be able to say that here on this podcast, trust me, has required a ton of work on my part. But we often think that challenge is a bad thing, but actually it creates strength. And I was actually just thinking about this today when I was on a run. I was thinking, so many people resonate with me, and I've made so much money because of my story. And most of the time people resonate with me in that story because of the difficult things that I went through. And it's so interesting that we think that challenge or struggle is a negative, when actually it just builds strength, just like working out, just like going to the gym. We're breaking down those muscles only to repair them and grow stronger. And if you think about nature, nature, it's constantly dying. It's constantly changing. There's constantly things happening, but that's what's meant to happen. And so I think we need to also put a different spin on challenge and recognize that challenge doesn't equal stop.
Wow, I love it. Challenge doesn't equal stop. I think so often, especially as entrepreneurs, it's one of the scariest, loneliest places on the planet, is that when you get to that place, especially if you don't have somebody to anchor to in regards to a coach, consultant, what have you, to keep you embracing the challenge, the struggle, what have you, knowing that actually this isn't a breakdown, it's a breakthrough for you. That we do challenge does equal stop typically.
Yeah, and people, it's not their fault, because we haven't been given the tools, especially when it comes to people who are running crazy busy businesses, successful businesses. They've reached incredible goals. Like, I need everyone to understand that when you get to that level, everything you're experiencing, your life, your business, it's not normal. And so you cannot show up in the same normal way that the rest of the world shows up. So that means you cannot eat what the rest of the world eats. You cannot do socially what the rest of the world does socially. You cannot, operate on 5 hours of sleep a night. You need to think of yourself as an athlete. And so much of the work that we do is internal in our company. We do strategy. We do help people scale their business. But my husband and I also love the internal work because people are not taught how to operate as their most successful self. They think that they can continue to do what the rest of the world is doing and still get the big time results. But that's just not the case. And so people have to learn how to live a life that and how to show up in a way that enables them to handle the success that they're experiencing and handle that next level. You have to become that person that's capable of reaching that next level, capable of having the next level impact and achievement, and even the creation of next level wealth.
I love that. I love that. And I'm sure people are listening, they're like, okay, got it. Yeah, I am at that place. I've aligned my desire. It might be a little incongruent right now, or needs a 2 millimeter shift of refinement. So I really get it into my heart, into my bones. So I'm excited about what I wake up and get to do every day. And I'm at a point where I'm either stuck or I'm operating by pay the rent law. I don't really, my phone's not ringing enough, and I am ready for growth and success. Those words can mean so much to so much different definitions for people, but my definition of that, whatever that might be for people. So can you talk to us a little bit about, once you get to that place and you've really anchored into your desire and you're really clear that this is your purpose and you are excited about what you get to do, now you're ready to design a life that you love, or do it right this time, whether it's refining in a stop restart or it's just a beginning for someone who's just starting their business. How to design a life. And people need to hear this. Life does not mean your business. You have to bring in your personal, your health, like you were just saying, your sleep, all of it, because it's so important versus just getting on the fast train and burning yourself out, which some people have probably experienced that are listening to this podcast, or they might be at that very pivotal point. How to design a life you love and manifest more success and wealth and kind of move past those fears and blocks and create more joy, balance in their life and their business. Can you talk to us about, once you're very clear on your desire, how do you do that and you are ready for some level of growth, whether it's a little bit or massive?
Yeah. So for me, just to go back a little bit to my story and speak from my experience. So when I moved to London, I didn't know anyone. I had to start this brand new life, but I knew that it was my desire to be there. And so I knew that doors would open if I continued to look for them. And so I started off working as a nanny. Then eventually I was a matchmaker. And one day in particular, my best friend sent me an email and she just said, "I thought you'd like this." And it was a link to Marie Forleo's website, who obviously is someone who's very big in the coaching space. And I devoured her website and really resonated with her message and also resonated with who she was. And she was somebody who she was an example of a coach in a way that I'd never experienced before. And I really resonated with her style, the type of people she worked with, all of that. So long story short, she inspired me to start I Heart My Life, which I started in 2014. In July 2014, I made a whopping $442 in the business, and then went on from there to try and grow. And I didn't know how to get to that next level. I didn't know how to make it happen. But I knew that there were other people out there doing it. I saw incredible coaches having great success. I started to really follow one coach in particular, and I saw that she basically was saying that you could turn your yearly salary into your monthly revenue as a coach. And I was like, okay, well, I like the sound of that. Sign me up. And my husband helped me invest in that first program, because when I started I Heart My Life, I was $30,000 in credit card debt. I had $90,000 in student loan debt. And so I didn't have money to start my business, but I found a way to make it happen through James and him lovingly giving me his credit card to invest in a coach. So my reason for sharing this is I think that you need to look around and see who is doing what you're doing, and how are they doing it? And the fastest way, in my opinion, to get yourself to the next level or to get yourself to joy or self-love or whatever it is to work with someone who specializes in that area. I think so, or even read a book or listen to the podcast. Just get yourself in the presence or in the room with people who think in the way that you want to think or experience the life that you want to experience. Because when we're surrounded by all of that, it's going to seep in. There's some research out there that proves that when we're sitting next to people in a restaurant, even if we don't know them, we take on their eating habits. So we will overeat or we will undereat based on how they're eating. And so we know that there's so much influence that happens by being connected, whether it's virtually or in the room, by other people. And so put yourself in the space where you're going to be around like-minded people or people who are going to inspire you or make you feel the way that you want to feel. And really observe all those people out there who have what you want. How are they getting it? And if you can, hire them. Because when I did that, everything started to shift for me. I went from $442 to six figures in my first 6 months. From there, I created a 7-figure business in my first 18 months. And that's because I consistently put myself in the space of people who were going to the next level. I consistently worked with mentors. I consistently raised the bar in my life and in the business. And that also means doing the internal work, because you have to have the capacity for the life that you're saying that you want. And you have to be taking the action that's in alignment with that life. And sometimes we don't know what that action is. And that's why mentors or examples of people who have the life that we want are so important.
Wow. And look at that. There was no secret sauce or secret strategy or business book that you got on how to build a 7-figure practice or business. And I love that. What I'm hearing from you is, once you are very clear on your desire, or close to very clear, and you have that desire in alignment with what you want in life, then you invested. What I love is that you invested in a coach, number one, even when you didn't have the money. Number two is that your friend had shared this with you and you didn't just say, oh, that's really cute, or let me think about it, let me process it, let me mull it over, let me figure out all the reasons on why I shouldn't do this because I can't afford it, blah, blah, blah. You took massive action. And I'm sure, and you did whatever it took. So you borrowed money, whatever, because you believed in yourself and you knew that this was going to work because you desired it so deeply.
Exactly. And I want everyone to understand that it wasn't that the fear wasn't there. It wasn't that the insecurity wasn't there. In fact, when I looked at Marie's website, I was like, oh my gosh, like she has amazing hair. She probably has all the clients. I don't know if there's any space for me. And all these insecurities came up and I was super jealous of her. But one of the things I teach my clients is follow your jealousy, because jealousy is just like those breadcrumbs. It's showing you what you want. It's showing you the next steps. And so I continue to follow my jealousy. And like you said, yeah, I invested in getting support from people who knew much more than me, because I knew that playing the business guessing game was not something I was available for. And when you have people in your corner who believe in you and see you on stages or in, writing books or selling out events or whatever it is, you're able to also adopt that belief and use it for yourself. And I continue to follow my desires. I mean, there were plenty of times where people said, oh, you can't do that. For example, I wanted to host an event and one of my coaches at the time was like, oh, do you think you're ready for that? And I was like, yes, I am. And watch me. And so I really paid attention to what was calling me and what was speaking to me and also what excited me. I think people think that there is only one way to build a business, but actually the best way to build a business is to continue to follow your excitement, because people feel that and they feel your energy, and you truly can create anything that you want. But it's going to be even more powerful when it's in alignment, because there are going to be challenges, there are going to be struggles, and you have to have your vision front and center and know why in the world you're doing this. Because if you don't have desire to come back to, you're not going to make it.
Wow. That is beautiful. Follow your jealousy. You always hear that jealousy is such a negative thing or bad thing. And I love that, because There's so many attorneys that are listening to this podcast that have somebody who is on the path, like you said, of Maria. And for anyone who doesn't know, Maria has an amazing business called B School, and they're bigger, better, prettier, whatever it might be. And those are the people that you want to be in the room with. One of the best things that one of my first mentors said, if you are the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. So you
Totally.
want to be in the room with giants and versus shrinking yourself. So for anyone listening, go find 3, 5, 10 people that bring up that jealousy in you, that make you feel like I'm not as good as them, whatever it might be. And then lock arms with that fear, that jealousy, what have you. And I love that. Follow it. Follow it, because that is an indication of you're on the right path. That's what you desire. And that's exactly where you should be going and where you should be striving towards.
Totally. Yeah. And I mean, I love what you said about, being in the room with those people ahead of you. And it's one of the things that I've done probably the best over the years is created an incredible network. I mean, one room in particular, my husband and I, we went to a live event with Brendan Burchard, the High Performance Academy. And he had this speaker named Robin Sharma on stage, and he was only up for a few minutes. And there was a split-second moment where he flashed on the screen, he flashed this like logo of something called the Titan Summit. And I fell in love with Robin right away. And I went outside during the break and looked on my phone, looked up the Titan Summit, and saw that he was selling tickets. And the tickets were like $7,500. I had no intention of spending money on any sort of events or events with that price tag in that moment. But I knew that I had to go. There was something like calling me in my core that I had to be in that room. And so I bought a ticket then and there. I didn't even buy one for my husband because I hadn't talked to him about it yet. But we ended up both going to this event, and it's this room full of millionaires and billionaires. And it's one of the most incredible events that we've ever been to. And the reason I'm sharing this is because it opened so many doors for us. We met some incredible mentors. I actually had a big aha moment in the room where I literally realized I had gotten to the point where I wasn't happy and I wasn't connected with what I was doing anymore. And so I ended up hiring someone to work on self-love and all the internal stuff that had kind of gotten lost along the way. And so I think when you put yourself in the room, so much happens. And when you put yourself in rooms with people who are far beyond where you are, or can teach you something, or can bring awareness to the surface that you didn't know you needed to realize, that's what's so powerful. And that's what's going to be transformational for you.
Wow. And being in that room with Brendan, which many of our listeners are probably well aware of, one of my favorite podcasts to listen to. But what I love about the story you just shared is you got in the room with Brendan, and then you hear about the Titan Summit. So getting in the room with one giant led you to another room that was very expensive to get into, but you still felt that intuition, that nag, and took the leap of faith, if you will, and got in that room, which led you to this massive crossroad, if you will, and then sent you to another coach. And it wasn't all about strategy. It wasn't all about making more money. It wasn't all about revisiting your business plan. What I love about what you said is you realized that it was an inside job. You needed to maybe take a couple steps back and go inward and start working on some mindset stuff or whatever it might be, the human stuff that we always negate and we gloss over. We're always just about, tell me what to do to grow this thing. Tell me what to do to get from point A to point Z that I want to be. And everything that you just shared, not one of those things necessarily pointed to a marketing strategy or anything that was going to lead you to a 7-figure business and beyond. It was quite the opposite, and the strategic byproduct of that. And the only way you could have gotten to that was by going inward to get the results that you wanted.
Exactly. Yeah. And the reason I'm sharing that story is because it all happened through me following my desire. And even that coach who I referred to, He's going to be one of the main speakers at our live event coming up in January. And so all these things fit together, and truly it all starts with following your desires.
So simple, so powerful, but I would assert that's not an easy journey. It really does, take you to, there's many different books and strategies that speak about even massive business companies that talk about going to the dark night of the soul, if you will, that you do need to visit that place to bring you to where you want to be. And I love that desire, because that's hard work to really anchor to that and to be able to answer that question and get very clear on that in alignment with your entire picture of your life, which then will impact your business.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not easy, and other people will judge you. But the important thing is that you are clear around what it is that you want and you move towards it, because, not everyone is going to get it. And the most important thing is that you get it and that you feel in alignment and that you feel excited about what you're doing and about your work in the world.
Mm. So you've shared with us what's worked for you and some of the world's most successful people that you, your husband, and your company have coached. Is number one, getting really clear on that desire. Number two, making certain that you're making the investment in aligning that desire with how to get there, with being in the room with giants, if you will, investing in coaches, search for what works for you. And this is a drive-by tip I would add to that, is make certain you might hire that first coach for $15,000 or $20,000 or what have you, and they might not be in alignment with you when you're halfway through the program, the process, what have you. And so often, and you and I have spoke about this, about how much money you invest in yourself, and you can't white knuckle it and say, this has to work because I spent $10,000 on this, or whatever you paid to get into Brendan's room. You say, well, I already invested in this, so I'm not going to invest in something else. It's a life journey. You're constantly investing in that, and you're not going to stop probably ever if you're on a path of growth, whether it's controlled growth or massive growth, but just not being so absolute about it, right? That you are willing to, each room that you pay to get into, whether it's a coach or a live event or what have you, I always have the mindset that you're never going to stop investing your time, money, energy, and resources into that.
Oh, no, of course not. Yeah. I mean, we, at this point, my husband and I together have spent about $500,000 on personal development coaches, masterminds, because we know, I think it was, right when I was starting the business, I saw on CNN, it was some sort of financial advisor, and he was like, the best investment you can make is in yourself. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do that. And I haven't stopped, because it has paid off millions of times over, because you meet other people in those groups, you go deeper, you learn more about yourself, you're able to get more in alignment, you're able to move into extraordinary. Just like I said, normal people don't make these decisions. Normal people, they think they're 1 week vacation a year is going to, be enough. And we need to go deeper than that. We need to recognize that we're operating at an extraordinary level. And we think of ourselves as athletes. Athletes have coaches, they have trainers, they have nutritionists, they have all of those people supporting them. They have teams. And it's the same when you're a business owner. And so I think that it's just a bit crazy to think that our education stops at 22 or 26 or whatever it may be, especially in the online space where things are always changing. It's so important to be able to not only get the knowledge, but also get the support that you need to be able to consistently develop and grow as well.
Indeed, indeed. I love that. I always tell people, be careful who you share your journey with. If it's not people that are on the same path as you. I had this conversation actually with a client yesterday, and they invested $18,000 in a coaching program and had shared that with their family, and they just went ballistic. So be careful who you share it with, because that their opinions do get into your subconscious, and sometimes it's a place of self-sabotage.
Yeah, especially if you're impressionable and you're newer on the journey. So at this point, I've done the work where I don't really care what other people think, and most people don't get most of my decisions. But I've done the work to be able to create the I guess the strength where that doesn't permeate as much. But especially if you're new on this journey, that can be enough to derail you. So you definitely have to be paying attention to your bandwidth, who you spend time with, what you share. It's super important to have that awareness because you really can't afford one negative thought.
Yes, indeed. So, Emily, can you share with us in closing and any nuggets that you can leave for our listeners today in regards to how to get started with that step one, if you will, of really aligning and getting clear on your desire? Are there any drive-by coaching tips you can leave for our listeners that they can start pondering in that process?
I would start to just have awareness. And so we mentioned the breadcrumbs. Start paying attention to what's calling you. And that could come in the form of desire. It could come in the form of jealousy. It could come in the form of excitement. And really start to observe how you're reacting to what is calling you. So a lot of people go into judgment and they judge themselves for what's coming up for them and what they're saying that they want. And so have awareness around what you're experiencing in your body and in your mind. Are you judging what it is that you're saying that you want? Because whatever we judge, we actually block because our subconscious doesn't want us to have it. For example, if you're saying you want a 7-figure business, yet you're judging people who have a 7-figure business, or you're telling yourself, oh my gosh, I'm going to be even more stressed when I have a 7-figure business, you're going to stop yourself from getting there. So you need to understand whether your desires have like pure energy around them, or if there's judgmental or stressed out energy or worried energy. And once you know that answer, then you can start to shift and you can take a look at, well, do I actually really want that? And if the answer is yes, then you can do the work to transform your mindset around what it is that you're saying that you want. So you just have to really make sure that you're in alignment, because then when you're in alignment, you will take the massive action. You will show up. If you're not, you're going to stop yourself.
Never have I heard what such a significant shift in regards to terms that you use, such as judgment, jealousy, and following those breadcrumbs, because they're actually nuggets of gold for you versus quote unquote bad. Jealousy, in these terms that you use, they're actually liquid gold for you to just stop and ponder them and see what it is about it that you are jealous. I love the example of the 7-figure business. So often I hear people say that, well, yeah, I do want X, Y, and Z, but so-and-so, they look for the bad in it, or they assume that it, like you said, the subconscious. But if you can really shift that and turn that, and when you have that indication and you have that gut rumbling, if you will, to that it's a sign that it's actually good, it's not bad, and grab onto that and take a moment to just brain dump what about that is it, because they are breadcrumbs to what you really desire and want.
Exactly. Perfectly put.
Wow. This has been transformative. It's been an amazing episode. I really look forward to having you back on. I know we spoke earlier about some ideas that I have that, and when we were prepping for this, of how I think you could bring so much value to our listeners. And I'm really excited. I know I really want to thank you. Emily's in London right now and in the middle of a move where she's moving to Hollywood. And I really appreciate you taking the time now while you're in London during a massive move and preparing for your live event in January to take the time and to share your massive wisdom with our listeners.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on.
So tell us how we can stay connected with you.
Yeah, so the website is iheartmylife.com. That's where you can find out about everything we have happening, our live events, our courses, our programs. And then I'm also on Instagram and Facebook, which is iHeartMyLifeNow.
Great. And I cannot say enough how I had found Emily was through her podcast, I Heart My Life show. So on her website, iheartmylife.com, I highly recommend going to her podcast tab and joining her show and listening to that, because there are so many amazing episodes and you have so much, just an extraordinary wealth of knowledge that would be very valuable to our listeners. So in the show notes, we will have a link to Emily's website in addition to her podcast and her blog, so you can stay connected. Thank you for being with us today, Emily.
Thanks again, Molly.